Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Black History Month webinar. We're going to take a minute or two to get people into the Zoom, and we'll start shortly. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Gatwiri Senior Manager of External Affairs here at Compto headquarters. And it's my pleasure to present to you our Black History Month webinar for 2022. This year's theme is Continuing the Legacy, Building the African American Pipeline to Transportation via HBCUs. And before we begin, I'd like to thank our industry partners for their support throughout the year to help us with programs such as the webinars that we're bringing you today. They are ACOM, HNTB, Jacobs, and WSP. Before we start, I have a few webinar housekeeping items I'd like to review. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please send a chat message to the host. To submit questions for the Q&A portion of the call, please use the Q&A box. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. This call is being recorded and will be made available to all attendees. Thank you again for joining us. And now I'd like to present to you our President and CEO, Ms. April Rye. April.
Thank you, Twiri, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this special webinar in celebration of Black History Month to discuss how historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, can be leveraged to strengthen and diversify the workforce pipeline in the transportation industry. You know, I think we can all agree that our industry is desperately in need of talent to enter the transportation workforce. At Compto, we're focused on strengthening the workforce pipeline with individuals from diverse backgrounds, ethnicities, abilities, and from socioeconomic backgrounds. We also want to see leadership in transportation reflect the diverse communities served. We understand that there is a wave of retirements happening across the transportation industry, and even more professionals who are eligible for retirement in key positions across transportation professions. All of this, combined with the lofty goals around infrastructure and development, make it imperative that we introduce young people to careers in transportation early and foster that interest throughout the years. We have to provide real-world experience and opportunities and connections to young people and showcase the variety of careers available and make it clear to them that if you like to work with your hands, there's a place for you in transportation. If you're a numbers person, there's a place for you in transportation. Or if you love IT or the environment, or if you're creative, there is a place for you in transportation. And I am well aware that I am preaching to the choir here, but we are so excited for the panelists that you're going to hear from today. You're going to learn about programs that are making an impact and why it's so rewarding to engage HBCUs in recruiting efforts. So it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's program, Mr. Charman Elliott. Charman brings over 45 years of experience in the transportation industry and currently serves as the first vice chair of the Compto Board of Directors, also as vice president of Somat Engineering Incorporated, a full service infrastructure provider. Charman, I'm going to turn the program over to you.
Thank you so much, April. I appreciate that warm introduction. Good afternoon, Compto partners, members, friends, supporters, and guests. Thank you for joining us for this very timely and relevant discussion. This webinar series and subject matter are very appropriate for Black History Month and the transportation industry as a whole. We have been challenged in this area for far too long, and I believe this discussion will provide us with some insight and a way forward to help solve this dilemma. So for the next hour or so, we have the pleasure of engaging this highly esteemed panel of folks to provide some historical background on the legacy that African Americans have played in transportation as well as the legacy of HBCUs being leaders in educating and training African Americans in STEM. I will now introduce our panelists and their affiliation. Then I would like each of you to take a minute or so to provide some additional background on yourselves. First, we have Mr. James Jackson, Tdrp Program Coordinator, Workforce Programs and Recruitment Unit, Michigan Department of Transportation. James?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Charman, for having me here today. Just a little bit about myself. Had the opportunity to work with Michigan Department of Transportation for the past 10 years. Currently, I work in the role as Transportation Diversity Recruitment Strategy Coordinator, where I get the opportunity, if you notice, I emphasize the word get the opportunity to recruit on the industry's behalf so that our department may benefit. A lot of the roles I've done include student outreach, recruitment, engagement, program development, and I am eager to make an impact through this program. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Terry Slaughter, Chief Culture, Equity, Inclusion Officer, Michigan Department of Transportation. Terry?
Again, thank you so much, Charman and the COMTO team for having me today. On behalf of the Michigan Department of Transportation, we are absolutely glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. My role as Chief Culture, Equity, and Inclusion Officer is new to MDOT, and I am new to MDOT. So I've only been with the organization and frankly in the transportation industry for the last 6 months. However, my role is indicative of MDOT's commitment to DEI, commitment to creating diversity pipelines to the transportation industry. And in another part of my career, I have been privileged to work very closely with HBCUs, their presidents, their students, their alumni, as a member of the team at the United Negro College Fund. So I am honored and privileged to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Carol Lewis, Professor and Emeritus Director of the Center for Transportation Training and Research, Transportation Studies, Texas Southern University.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm delighted to be a part of this panel. My history is that before I was teaching at Texas Southern University, I had the honor of working for the Metropolitan Transit Authority in Harris County. As a professor at Texas Southern University, I educate students in transportation planning, transportation policy, and transportation operations. I'm honored to serve on the Transportation Research Board and their Committee for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In a prior decade, I was also honored to be academic advisor for COMTO. So just delighted to be here and to talk about HBCUs and how we better integrate our students into the larger transportation community and needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Miranda Mcbride, Director, Center for Advanced Transportation Mobility, Professor of Management, North Carolina A&T State University. Dr. Mcbride.
Greetings from Aggie Land. I appreciate the invitation to come and speak with this group. I'm very honored by this ability to address all of you and tell you a little bit about what we do here at North Carolina A&T. I am currently the director of our Center for Advanced Transportation Mobility. That is a Tier 1 university transportation center that was funded through the FAST Act in 2016. And we are just one of 2 HBCUs that are leading one of those consortiums. In addition to that, I was from 2015 to 2020, the director of our Transportation Institute here on campus. So that Transportation Institute is actually housed in our College of Business and Economics, that you can see behind me. And we are an interdisciplinary center. So a lot of the research that goes on here actually incorporates professors and faculty members over in the College of Engineering as well. My background personally, I am an industrial and systems engineer, and I graduated from this illustrious university several years back. and am honored to be able to continue to serve the HBCU community as one of their professors. And I am currently a professor of management here in the Department of Management.
Welcome, Dr. McBride. We appreciate you. Dr. Veriva Harris, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management, Director, Summer Transportation Institute, Benedict College. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure being among our nation's movers and shakers in the transportation industry. And I have worked as the director for the National Summer Transportation Institute for about 12 years. And I've served as the campus program manager for the Dwight David Eisenhower Fellowship Program, accompanying students to the Transportation Research Board Conference every year and guiding along with our faculty their transportation related research. Additionally, I've worked with Federal Highway Administration and the South Carolina Department of Transportation in virtual professional development programming and in-person professional development programs to expose college and high school students to career and employment and educational opportunities in transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly last but not least, we have two very esteemed student alumni. First, we have Ms. Andrea Hargrove, Engineering Training, Engineer Development Program, Michigan Department of Transportation, alumni of North Carolina A&T University. Andrea, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Hargrove. I'm currently in engineering training with the Engineer Development Program with Michigan Department of Transportation. I help the design unit with road reconstruction and remodeling for roads and bridges. I am an alumni from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. I graduated in 2021 with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. And just a little fun information about me. For my free time, I like to play video games and I like to work on crafts and create art, but I really want to gain experience and knowledge so that I can build upon the transportation system.
Thank you and welcome to our panel today. Next, we have Mr. Jamal Smiles, Engineering Training, CSRS in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, alumni of Southern University and A&M College. Welcome, Jamal.
Thank you so much. And I'm so honored to be here amongst you all. Like previously mentioned, a recent grad from Southern University, A&M College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I got my bachelor's in civil engineering. Currently, like previously mentioned as well, I work for CSRS in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Before that, as a student, I was able to be a part of the Tdrp program twice. First with the Michigan Department of Transportation, where I did bridge inspection, and then the second time with WSP. And I also spent almost 2 years at the Louisiana Department of Transportation Development as a co-op in traffic engineering and development. So again, thank you all for having me, and I'm happy to be a part of this discussion.
Thank you so much. Welcome to all of our panelists. So without further ado, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So the first question I have, I'd like to address the three doctors that we have on panel, Dr. Lewis, Dr. Harris, and Dr. McBride, in that particular order. The question that we have now is, can you speak to the legacy as it relates to African Americans in transportations and HBCUs being leaders in educating and training African Americans in STEM? Dr. Lewis, would you speak to that for us, please?
Certainly, and we actually see that legacy through individuals that we have on the call now. I'm listening to Mr. Smiles and talking about his background, and we're already seeing him begin to ascend up that ladder. I would mention that I think our colleague from Benedict College mentioned that she does summer institutes. And one of the success stories that we like to talk about here at Texas Southern University is a gentleman by the name of Jermaine Hannon, who was a summer institute student at South Carolina State University. He came to Texas Southern and got his master's degree, started in HAWA's PDP program, and now has ascended to the second highest ranking individual at FHWA in the state of Indiana. So that shows the legacy that we have. If we educate our students, bring them into the system, and then they have an opportunity to, to stepwise up. So the histories of HBCUs, I think, are just very rich in this regard, and the pathways that we talk about, and look at as a stepping stone. And that young man, his undergraduate and graduate degrees were from HBCUs. And then, he's one of many that we could tell that kind of story about, that we see them start off, and then year by year by year, they advance to the highest levels of both private industry and the public sector.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Lewis. Dr. Harris, would you care to weigh in on that?
Yes, sure. Yes. I would like to celebrate, in the spirit of Black History Month, some of the pioneers who really, I think, have paved the way in Dr. Clarence Hill, who was the original, where the National Summer Transportation Institute started in our state in around 1994 in South Carolina. And from Benedict College, Dr. Robert Scott, who allowed Benedict College to participate in the program by completing the first grant application for us to complete. And then none other than Dr. Eileen Payne, who was the champion for the Dwight David Eisenhower program. And then Pamela Foster, who recently retired from Federal Highway, who graduated from Benedict College. She was a civil rights officer for Federal Highway for almost 20-some years with SCDOT and Federal Highway. And it was those leaders who made sure that students at Benedict College were involved in the transportation industry, even though at first we did not have engineering programs. And so we really championed our computer science, our biology, our chemistry, even accounting majors and marketing majors, to really get involved in this huge industry called transportation. And so those legacy leaders who touch the future by creating programs that will allow students access to gain entrance into the transportation industry. So that's kind of some of the groundwork on how we at Benedict College have just continued to stay engaged over a 30-year history of working in the transportation industry through various partnerships.
Thank you for that. Dr. Mcbride, same question.
All right, well, since Dr. Harris and Dr. Lewis did a good job of addressing the transportation end, I'll focus more on the STEM side then. So North Carolina A&T has a long and vast history in terms of our ability to produce STEM graduates. So we have been the #1 producer of African-American STEM graduates. That statistic was posted in 2019, and currently we produce more African-American engineers and ag scientists than any other university within our nation. And we also have a great business school too. I have to plug that in as well. We do transportation research and projects within our College of Business as well. Because we have our current enrollment of 13,000 students, we are America's largest HBCU, and that's for the 8th consecutive year in a row. We have ranked #1 in the HBCUs in America by Washington Monthly in 2021. Money Magazine has ranked us high up there as well. So we are definitely on the forefront when it comes to producing our engineers and scientists, and as well as our transportation professionals as well. We just celebrated the grand opening, as a matter of fact, of one of our newest engineering buildings, the Harold L. Martin Sr. Engineering and Research Innovation Complex. And that 130,000 square foot building is actually going to house a lot of new and innovative labs, high bay maker spaces. And within there, we have transportation simulation equipment as well that are being brought in. And we will have some new autonomous shuttles that are coming in as well, and a test track around our university. So we are definitely on the forefront of making sure that HBCUs are engaged in the transportation industry. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we have the longest running STI program, and that's the Summer Transportation Institute for anybody who may not know. And we will be celebrating our 30th year with that program this summer. So we are proud to be one of the first to actually offer that program in transportation. And I think I've said enough.
Well, we're just getting started. So thank you all for your responses to that question. And I can tell you, if I'm sitting in the audience, I'm sure people are sitting there, you've just certainly whet their appetite. They're taking rather copious notes, but we're just getting started. So, what I'd like to do now is, this is for everybody on the panel. We'll go one by one and get your response to this question. I'm sure many people are wondering, why HBCUs? What's the importance of making sure this resource is included when discussing the pipeline of African-American talent to transportation? As you all know, it's a tremendous shortage out there right now. Why should we focus on HBCUs? Dr. Lewis.
Sorry, taking a minute to get to the microphone. I think the reason to focus on HBCUs is that the pool of talent is so rich at our historically Black colleges and universities. And I think, the two sides to the story are when you're an employer and looking to seek the person to sort of fill the gaps and voids in your company, you're going to be looking for someone who's industrious, who's got a good sense of self, who's got great ethics, and who has been taught those items and skill sets that you're going to need. And our HBCUs are actively doing that. Not only are we teaching from the academic standpoint, but we have so many avenues to programs like our other guests today that are talking about. The internships are offered at Michigan State DOT, the opportunities for networking with the organizations that are doing the hiring. And I think that our HBCU students come to the table with an energy, with a hunger, and with the appropriate educational skill set. The other thing about that is that you're talking about a pool of people that in a historical sense, and quite often might just be overlooked. How many companies just go to the major universities first, and they don't even think about coming to the HBCUs. And so we have these transportation programs. The people that we're talking about are well regarded and have made a mark in the industry. And so when we are teaching those individuals that are coming behind, that's something that I think the companies really want to tap. And I think it's sort of it's an untapped and a very rich treasure trove for folks to seek out. And you don't want to miss the person you might have gotten from your HBCU.
Indeed. Dr. Mcbride, same question.
Well, for me, one of the main things that I see is that there's this focus on equity now in transportation. And when I look at many of the majority institutions, of course, they're looking at equity from some very important areas like disability, but our African-American community can look at it from a different perspective. And by being able to tap into some of our students and their experiences with transportation resources from their communities, then we'll be better able to address some of the systemic issues within transportation from an equity standpoint. As Dr. Lewis said, we have a treasure trove of students at our HBCUs. Our students have experiences that have allowed them to be very creative in terms of problem solving. We do that here at a HBCU all the time because of our limited resources in many respects in comparison to our majority counterparts. We learn to be very creative and resourceful when it comes to solving problems. And so that's one thing that our students learn as well, because a lot of them come from disadvantaged environments and they know how to pull the resources that they have in order to solve a problem in a way that others may not have even thought about solving them. And so that's one of the things that I really kind of hone in on with these students is that they may not necessarily be knowledgeable from the beginning, but they have very open minds and we can drive into them pretty much a lot of information that will enable them to solve some of the world's problems that have otherwise gone kind of ignored over the course of the years. For instance, we look at autonomous vehicle technology. Most of the time, we're looking at implementing those only in these large urban areas. Now, there may be minority communities there, but what about these rural communities? So those are some of the things that some of our students might be able to speak towards in the implementation of those types of technologies.
Thank you so much for that. You said something a little bit earlier in your response, and you're talking about resilience and creativity. that really kind of drives transportation, and it's a challenge that we all have. And when we don't have the opportunity to be resilient, number one, then we don't have the creativity. Creativity is a result of having to do something because you've never had to have, you've never been in a position to take advantage of it. I loved your response. That's fantastic. Next, Dr. Harris, same question.
Why not the HBCU? I don't know what's taking people so long to realize how valuable and significant the HBCU community has been in all of higher education. There were very little, if there were no Black graduates from colleges, if there were no HBCU in the beginning when all of this started. So we have a history of producing conscious, minded, culturally relevant professionals who are able to compete and do any job just like anyone else. So I'm not sure what the hoopla is all about HBCUs now. We've been here, our mark is being made on all of the graduates that have been out there long before. Now, what we have to offer that I think has been missing has been, people who are African Americans, but who are more silent on making sure the doors of opportunity stay wide open for others who are coming behind them. And I think the HBCUs in higher education just keep that door propped open for students and for professionals and for, I don't know if any parents are on here, but now is definitely the time to send your child to an HBCU, because if you think all of the silent racism just popped off all of a sudden, no, it has been the way it has been. And we really need to have our students ready to deal in this social justice focused, but yet still where there are so many disparities, our students need that confidence that I think they get at the HBCU and that pride at the HBCU. Not to mention, I did graduate from Benedict College. So I am HBCU to the core, but I will say too, we have a partnership with Clemson University through the University Transportation Center, and our students get first-rate opportunities when it's time to go to graduate school somewhere. They don't have to wait in a long line on a waiting list to go to a graduate school. We have partnerships with other colleges and universities to help them get into graduate school if that's what they're interested in. We also have relationships with companies like Boeing who come and recruit students at our school, and IBM. I was walking across campus the other day and one of the students said, Dr. Harris, I got accepted into Harvard for graduate school, but then IBM offered me a job. So I think I'm gonna defer my graduate school application and go work at IBM. So those are the kinds of things that are just happening on the HBCU college campus. And so that's why I say, yes, definitely HBCUs not only are relevant, but absolutely necessary.
Well, thank you for that. When you mentioned something about the hoopla is because we've been overlooked for so long. As you well know, Conference of Minority Transportation, COMTO, we were founded on the campus of Howard University 50 years ago. And the whole purpose was to try to level the playing field and make sure that we had equal opportunity in transportation. That hasn't changed, and it's not going to change to this day. I think what we're trying to do is to spotlight the need for us to look for talent beyond the major colleges and universities and focus in on the HBCUs, because there's just a wealth of talent there. And we don't know it if we don't spotlight it. So it's about giving the exposure, making sure that we're putting it out there for folks to know. So that's great. I love everything that's been said, and I'm sure that our audience, again, are pretty excited about that, and it's whet their appetite. And I'm sure they're probably talking to their talent acquisition folks and saying that we need to start looking at some of these HBCUs. Great responses. I love it. Next, I'd like to go to Mr. Jackson. What are some of the successful programs and initiatives where the public and private sector are engaging HBCUs? If you could take a minute or two and just kind of share with us your knowledge in that area and what you think is happening, that would be great.
Yes, where I think that the public is engaging with HBCUs. On a federal level, a lot of people are not aware that they have programs such as the Dwight Eisenhower Fellowship. It's an opportunity for students that are interested in transportation careers to apply through FHWA. Even at MDOT, right here, this program that we're highlighting today, what really makes me passionate is that our director, Director Paul C. Ajiba, is a graduate of Prairie View A&M, which is an HBCU. So right now, currently, from a government standpoint, we are leading the way in terms of providing a program specifically and strategically for HBCU students. You know, although HBCUs are predominantly African-American, however, it does embrace an inclusive space for all. You know, other programs that I'm aware of that are related to the industry partnering with HBCUs is also, there's another program for high school students that focuses on the National Summer Transportation Institute, like our colleague here from North Carolina A&T mentioned. You know, they actually build a pipeline directly for students to come in and understand what possibilities are available. You know, the ground is fertile, so there's opportunities for many. However, we took the stand. You know, there's movers and there's shakers. You think about transportation, moving things place to place. So we took the effort and the initiative to make a move other than stand there shaking. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what I know.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Dr. Mcbride, what are some of the challenges and barriers HBCUs face as far as getting more African Americans in transportation?
Well, to me, the barriers from what I've seen interacting with students is that, for lack of a better way to say it, transportation isn't viewed as sexy enough for them. So it's a matter of them. I think the opportunities are out there, and because I see it every day that we provide opportunities for internships through our NCDOT. We have research opportunities through our center. We have opportunities from some of our researchers who are doing research in transportation, but the students don't necessarily understand their fit within transportation and where their interests fit within transportation. I believe at the beginning of the session, there was a mention of the different disciplines that if you're interested in, creative arts, there's a place for you in transportation. I try to communicate the same thing, especially when we have our Summer Transportation Institute over the summer. When I go and speak to the students, I let them know many of them don't have, at that point in time, an interest in transportation. They're attracted because their parents have heard about our program, or a family member has heard about our program, and they've sent their children to us. But the children themselves, or the high schoolers themselves, may not necessarily have an interest in transportation at that time. So I try to communicate to them that if they're interested in psychology, there's a place for them in transportation. If they're interested in law, there's a place for them in transportation. It's not just engineering and the hard sciences that are of interest. Even our business students, of course, we have supply chain concentration within our College of Business, but they're not the only ones that we need in transportation. So that's one of the key things that I see. I myself personally have not necessarily seen that people don't want our students in these transportation organizations. It's a matter that our students have not realized what their place might be in these transportation organizations and have not necessarily sought out the opportunities. So my goal is to educate them with, like one of the programs we just implemented is we call it ASSETS. It's Advancing STEM Education Through Transportation Studies. And it's a HBCU Up grant through the National Science Foundation. The whole purpose of that program is to expose students primarily right now, civil engineering and supply chain management students, but it's open to all students on campus. But where our purpose is to expose them to various careers in transportation and let them see that their interests can also find a place there in some of these organizations. So to me, that's the biggest obstacle that I'm finding, is just making sure that the students see that there's a place for them within the transportation field.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, you touched on it a little bit earlier in your response regarding the collaboration with HBCUs. Can you describe the Tdrp program and what kinds of opportunities it offers HBCU students? What has been the impact of the program on the students? And lastly, what have Tdrp participants gone on to accomplish?
Yes. So when we talk about the Transportation Diversity Recruitment Program, it's a great opportunity that couples, I always tell students, education gets you to the door, experience gets you through the door. So it couples an opportunity to gain experience in the field of transportation, whether it be the construction management aspect, the design aspect, and also innovative aspects such as the collection of data with traffic studies, things like that. So during this opportunity, students will get an opportunity to work. They'll get an opportunity to live here in Michigan. We provide housing. What happens is, what people don't realize, especially with underrepresented groups, sometimes the monies that they earn, they have to send funds back home to help their mom, or they have other obligations. So we identify the barriers that folks may face. So we provide housing. We also provide a meal stipend. We also provide transportation, because a lot of times when people travel to Michigan, they may say, hey, how will I get around, or I don't have a car. So we make sure all those things are met. But the main focus is holistically, we want to meet the needs of our future professionals. Our hope is that we'll be able to, how can I say this? I think that our hope is that we'll be able to fertilize the seed of genius in each of these students where they know that there's a place for them. MDOT, we pride ourselves on being very inclusive. We want people to know that as they work in this industry, where it may be, you know, if you look at the numbers, it's 71% white male. There's probably, I believe it's 11% Asian. You know, African Americans represent a small population, such as 4% in the industry with civil engineering, 4%. So while here, we make sure they get professional development. We work with COMTO. You know, I'm not just plugging COMTO, but the Michigan COMTO chapter is amazing. You know, what happens is we have a program, it's called the, Connection Captains. So Connection Captains provide a mentor the whole time they're here, so they can learn about things that are going on here in Michigan, receive the professional development they need. And also we provide a poster session where we connect private and public together. So people who have firms on the private sector, coupled with MDOT leaders and staff, they host a poster session to share about everything they've learned. And, you know, there's so many things that we aspire to do with those students, but we also collectively stay engaged with them to help them accomplish their goals. We realize that every student won't be able to work here at MDOT. We work tirelessly to build relationships with other firms so that they do have a gateway to employment as they move forward into the industry.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Next question is for Ms. Slaughter. What was the driving force behind MDOT creating the Tdrp program? And from an organizational point of view, why does it make good business sense to engage HBCUs?
Thank you for that. I really want to amplify a couple of things that have already been said. So James shared the specifics of the TDRP program and that removal of barriers, the range of barriers that students of color, Black and brown students, low income students, and marginalized students and first generation students can face. The removal of those from MDOT's perspective creates not just a workforce pipeline that's kind of a one-off. So we're getting individual students to enter our pipeline. We realize that when we connect with HBCUs, we're really connecting with communities of students. We're connecting with families. And that gives us not just a healthier pipeline of rich talent today, but that gives us an even better shot for the continuance of that pipeline of talent now and in the future. Moreover, as James indicated, and even our faculty members have already indicated, we really need to focus on certainly our workforce challenges in the engineering and STEM spaces, absolutely. But there is such value and wealth in having African American Black voices at the table in spaces that include planning, that include how we articulate our brand for people, both internally and externally. It makes good business sense for us to connect with HBCUs because at the end of the day, HBCUs have and will continue to be into the foreseeable future the key pipeline for bringing African American and talent of color across all professions in the United States and across the globe. And so even from the perspective of who will be our future policymakers that will advance transportation and articulate the needs of infrastructure into the future, we have to be connected to HBCUs and organizations like COMTO in order to remain relevant and in order to effectively serve all of our citizens.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to remind everybody towards the end of our session today, we will have some time set aside for Q&A. So if you want to start populating the Q&A panel, you can start putting your questions in there. And then towards the end, Gatwiri will be selecting certain questions that she will be addressing to the panelists. So for those participants that are out there that have some questions that you'd like to get asked of the panelists, please start populating the Q&A portion of the Zoom. My next question will be for the three doctors, Dr. Lewis, Dr. McBride, and Dr. Harris. In that order, please. Please describe how your respective schools are engaging with the transportation industry. What are you doing to attract students and prepare them for careers in transportation? Dr. Lewis.
I think I heard a two-part question. What are we doing to engage students first, right?
Yes.
In the transportation industry. So we find it very important to make sure that our students are linked in with acting professionals. So we have an on-campus student organization for Institute of Transportation Engineers. We have an on-campus organization for WTS. We engage our students with COMTO. COMTO in Houston, and COMTO nationally offers scholarships, and our Houston chapter does as well. So we introduce our students to come through that avenue. And then we also have mentoring programs. So we have individuals who are practicing professionals to mentor our graduate students and our undergraduates. And so really make sure that they get exposure. So that exposure is two ways, so that the practicing professionals can see these young people and so that they have an opportunity to present themselves to the professionals as well. And then I think your second question was, how are we introducing students to transportation? Was that the second question?
Yes, the second part of that is, what are you doing to attract students and prepare them for careers in transportation?
So I think that we do a lot of recruiting. So we recruit on our own campus as well as recruit at high schools in the Houston area. to make people aware of our programs. One thing that really attracts students, quite frankly, is if you can tell them that you have a scholarship, then their antenna perk up and they become more interested. So we try to make sure that we have opportunities for them, both scholastically as well as opportunities to work on research. So a couple of the speakers mentioned their affiliation with University Transportation Centers. We too are a part of that. And so we have our students, not only as they are currently going through the academics, but they also are able to reach out and do some real active, hands-on kinds of transportation problem solving, both with problems that, that maybe our DOT has, our MPO has, our local transit agency has. And so that's the other way that we are able to recruit, is to offer students those kind of opportunities. So we tell them, that if you're able to come to Texas Southern University, we'll be able to liaison you with work that the DOT is doing, the MTA is doing. And so those kinds of opportunities help us to attract students again, especially if we can put a, kind of a tuition and book award with it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Dr. McBride, same question, two-part. Would you like for me to repeat it?
No, I think I have it. So how we're currently engaging with the transportation industry. First, of course, we do have our University Transportation Center right now, but even before the current center that I'm currently leading, there was another UTC where we were an independent standalone center, so we didn't have consortium members. So that was back way before my time, so in the 80s. Shortly after the Transportation Institute was actually created. So we've been engaged with the transportation community for several decades. Of course, we have partnerships with the NCDOT. We have researchers who regularly respond to their research needs that they send out to us each year. We even recently have a program with GM, the auto drive competition, where we have students who are working on developing their own autonomous vehicle. So they're in like stage 2, I think, of that competition with other universities. Of course, when we're actually engaged in research, we have partnerships with the organizations that are more than likely to implement the technologies or the solutions that we come up with. So like Easy Mile, I mentioned the autonomous shuttle. So we do have partnerships with Easy Mile for bringing those autonomous shuttles to our campus. Of course, with our STI, we engage with the transportation community because we take our students to Washington, D.C., and they get to actually see many of the transportation organizations that they otherwise probably would not learn about here in North Carolina. So they get to interact with Turner Fairbanks Highway Research Center, excuse me. Of course, we have our own Highway Safety Research Center here in North Carolina at UNC Chapel Hill that they interact with as well. And WMATA, when they go to Washington, D.C., they learn about the metro system and all of that. In addition, we also have some of these partners on our external advisory boards for both engineering as well as the College of Business. So for instance, in the College of Business, we have individuals from Delta, UPS, and FedEx who are part of our external advisory committees. And so that way we are able to get direct input, and they meet regularly, usually like twice a year, and they sit down for a 2-day long meeting typically and have the opportunity to discuss what we're offering here in our classes and how that might align properly with what they need in their companies. So Greensboro Transit Authority, I mean, I could keep throwing names out there, but you get the point that we have a lot of interactions with various organizations that tap into different components of the opportunities that we provide for our students.
Thank you. Dr. Harris, same question to you.
Sure. So a couple of ways we, from a practical experience, our students who are interested in the transportation industry on the federal level, our students participate in the Tdrp program. That is an internship program. I saw one student ask. The STI program is for high school students, but the Tdrp program is an internship program for college and university students to participate in. And so we work really diligently with our students to participate in the Tdrp program, where they can, whether it's rail or highways or federal aviation or transit, the students, or federal highway, the students can participate in internships in those particular ways. We also do have virtual programs with corporations. For example, like I said, with Boeing, that's one of our signature programs in South Carolina, since they're headquartered right there in Charleston, where they do virtual, their different leaders will do seminars for our students so they can see the vast opportunities within transportation. Also, as I stated, through our UTC program with Clemson University, we have headquartered on our campus the Quantum AI Laboratory, where researchers from across the state and students come and do research on real-world transportation problems. So those are some of the ways. Again, we have for students who are interested in research, we have that component. For students who are interested even in transportation and study abroad opportunities, when our students go abroad, we try to connect them with an opportunity to continue to foster their interest in transportation. And then on the academic side, we of course offer scholarships for students to come and study. And we do take them on trips to visit transportation organizations within their backyard. You'd be amazed at how many students grow up and there's an engineering firm right down the street and they ride past it their whole lives. And suddenly when they leave campus and go back to college, they realize that a transportation organization was right there in their backyard. And so just seeing that awareness of students and giving them the exposure to the professional mentors and to the faculty researchers who allow them to work in their labs and pay them a stipend, as well as connect with industry partners who are coming to campus or where we're taking visits to tour their organizations.
That is fantastic. Both Andrea and Jamal have been waiting patiently, so you guys are on deck now. So I'd like to go to Andrea first and ask her this question. How do you feel your time at an HBCU prepared you for your career in transportation?
I feel that my time at an HBCU definitely prepared me for my career. Right now, like I'm in the EDP program and I'm current rotation, I'm doing design. And if anything, the engineering program hit A&T definitely drilled in CAD and MATLAB and everything else. And I definitely believe that they prepared me for going out in the field. When I got to my first job doing the internship, I already knew how to use the program. I knew the routine. I knew what the expectations of the employers asked of me. I was ready. And I promise you, I think they were a little shocked that I knew what was happening and how to do the majority of the work, because I was just cranking out a lot of what they had me to do. And after a while, they're like, I don't know what else to give you. What else do I need to give you? Oh, you're going to calculate these by hand. I was like, I got you. Finish those real quick. But I definitely enjoyed my time at NCAT, and I would want them to continue to basically teach and encourage more students to be more like me and enjoy their time at NCAT and learn more so that they will be prepared for their career in the future.
Well, you got my attention. I love it. Jamal, what was your experience like working at Michigan Department of Transportation as part of the Tdrp program?
First off, it was a great experience. It was my first experience. Mr. James Jackson was the first person to take a chance on me. And I always want to tell him, you know, I greatly appreciate that. But just as for the experience itself, my first experience with MDOT was with the Bridge Inspection Unit in the University District. And I had a great time, you know, being exposed to that. It was more of a structural position. But I think one of the main things in the internship is understanding kind of what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And through doing that, I realized I enjoyed it, but I don't want to do it anymore. So I, kept going. My next opportunity was with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, like I said previously. And with that, I got more into more of the transportation aspect through design and traffic engineering and things like that. And I realized I do want to do that. So at the conclusion of that experience, I gave Mr. Jackson a call again. I was like, Mr. Jackson, I would like to continue doing something similar to what I'm doing, but I would like to do it on the private side, the private sector side. And he was like, Jamal, I got you. And through him, I was able to have the opportunity with Tdrp program with WSP, where I did more heavy highway and things like that. So just the Tdrp program, just basically it was the catalyst, the jump start I needed. And it eventually got me to a point where I knew I wanted to be in and that's how I am where I am today, knowing that, or getting the experience that I got through that program.
Fantastic. Adriana, as the next generation of transportation leaders, what are some of the ways we can attract younger generation of African Americans into the industry?
I believe some ways that you could attract more African Americans into the industry is definitely continue to be on that on-person schedule where you meet people at career events or go to campus and talk to the different students. And sometimes, just ask some of the teachers and you go in and talk to them too. But also another way you could expand that would be like showing videos of the individual who took part in the internship and showing, you could do videos or images showing them what we do during the internship and what our perspectives are from the internship that might encourage them to give it a try. Make sure you give them like detailed evaluations of what we kind of do. Like, I know when I started applying for internships, I was mostly looking for internships with housing, especially if it was from a long distance. Like, since I'm from North Carolina, moving to Michigan is like a whole 12-hour drive all the way up here and you're flying. You just want to make sure that you have a place that you can stay, you cover your sources and everything is together. And I feel that if MDOT didn't have it, I might have not chose it, but I'm glad they had it because this was a wonderful opportunity to experience what I like and dislike and what I could prepare for my future. So I think those are definitely ones. And I think also another way is to expand on people from high school. Not everybody will go to college. I did a small interview with one of the coworkers from MDOT, and she said that if she could change anything, because she never went to college before, if she could change anything, she would have went to college so she can actually experience the Tdrp program and got to go through like the ED program and go through the rotations and see what she liked for her career.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal, same question. As the next generation of transportation leaders, what are some ways you think we can attract younger generation of African Americans into the industry?
Similar to what Adriana said, it definitely starts with internships and actually getting out there and getting exposed to different things in the industry. I don't recommend just jumping out, when you graduate and just trying something because, you might think you like it because you never know once you actually get exposed to some of the work. So definitely giving more African Americans opportunities to even be exposed and understand what comes with the territory and different avenues that they can take in different areas because like we've said, it's been a theme. There's something in transportation for everyone. So no matter what, just get out there and try and find something. It's something out there for you. So that's what I think would help everyone be more comfortable going to the transportation field.
Excellent. So based on your journey so far, some of the things that you've seen as you've moved through your career, your young career, what is it you would like to share with the audience that they may want to consider as we look at trying to build our pipeline with young, talented African Americans like yourself and Adriana?
I think one thing you can go ahead.
Go ahead, you're good.
Okay, well, I think one thing definitely to consider is always keep a close connection with the university the HBCU that you went to. My right now, she used to work with Elliott, and she actually sat in on a presentation that I gave in class for my transportation class. And I guess she liked what she heard from me, and she just approached me and said, "I would like you to come work for us as a co-op, for a few semesters." And I did, and that's how I got the opportunity at LADOTD. And it was that connection that she had with her HBCU, that love and drive that she had for her school to help the next generation, actually have an opportunity as well, that allowed me to begin some of those opportunities. And I guess during my time with LADOTD, she liked what she saw even more, and she had the opportunity where she is now at CSRS, and she asked me again, "I would like you to come with me to CSRS. I think you can really grow here and benefit from this opportunity." So it's always someone holding the door open, keeping the door open. So please, everyone, just keep that door open for the next generation, because that's how I got where I am today.
Same question to you, Adriana.
For me, I definitely was able to get a part of MDOT with one of my coworkers from school, or one of my friends from school, and we got to do a few things. He encouraged me to take part in MDOT for the Tdrp program. I was a little skeptical at first, but he encouraged me to go, and I'm glad I took the chance. I would say for people similar to me, like, definitely don't be afraid, just take the chance. There's nothing wrong with taking a chance. It's important that you open your horizons. Also, if you got career fairs, go to them. Even if you're a freshman, it's important to go there. Definitely get involved, network, see different companies that you might like, invest in them, and then when you go into your sophomore year, prepare everything you need for your career fair. And I would definitely say apply for everything. Everything is important. And when it comes to meeting new people, just have that open horizon, and definitely encourage other people to try new things.
Both you and Jamal have made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I am so excited. These are our future leaders, y'all. Let's shock the world. This is an opportunity. This is the type of talent that we're talking about. And you get an opportunity to hear from them firsthand in terms of what they contribute and what they will contribute. I am very sure that both Jamal and Adriana and the others that are out there that are coming into the transportation industry will be doing a phenomenal job for us. And this is just a way for us to kind of give you an idea and showcase some of the talents that's coming out of the historically Black colleges and universities. Let's not continue to overlook them. Let's make sure that we engage. We've got to fill this pipeline. There's a tremendous dearth of talent that's out there. We're looking to try to fill that. And the answer is not moving pieces around and around, because when you start moving pieces, whether you're moving it from private industry to private industry or from agency to private industry, the net gain is zero. Unless we start to build a wealth and a reserve of talent and try to find out where this talent is, we've got to make sure that we're going to get that talent. This is a case for us looking at HBCUs, making sure that we're tapping into this phenomenal resource that we have available to us. And I say that because I know, from the programs that are out there, from the things that James Jackson is doing, as well as the things that Terry Slaughter is doing, and all of the doctors that are on the call and the students, they're really engaged. This is a passion play. This is something that we're really looking forward to, making sure that we're engaged and we're engaged in a meaningful way. Let's not continue to overlook this talent. One of the things that I heard, and I really love it, it was a very simple statement. It said, talent is distributed equally, opportunity is not. What we're talking about is creating that opportunity and giving these young folk an opportunity to engage in a meaningful way in industry. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Gatweri. She will now start our Q&A session. Looks like we've got quite a few questions in the box. If you still want to get your questions in, certainly put them in the Q&A box and we'll try to get to them if we've got time. Gatweri, turning it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Charman, and thank you to our panelists as well. So our first question comes from Kiana McCoy from HNTB Corporation. Kiana has a two-part question. Can you speak to how private industry firms who are looking for talent can best engage career development programs at your respective HBCUs? Also, what are some actionable steps that we as COMTO members and employees at firms can implement at entry, mid, and senior leadership levels to increase visibility of talent at HBCUs? So it looks like that question may be for one of our HBCU reps.
So we have a career services office. That office is led by Brian Love. And I put my email in the chat box. And if you want to reach out to me, I'll be happy to get you connected with the right person so that we can keep the interest going. So yes, just reach out to me. I put the email in the chat box and we'll be happy to get you connected.
Would anyone else like to answer Kiana's question?
I guess one thing this is Dr. Lewis. I guess one thing I would think about as I hear your question, Kiana, is the most pivotal relationships and things that matter are when you reach out individually to the schools and to the students. So your firm has locations all across the nation. So, and in many COMTO cities too, right? So if there could be opportunities for people who work at your firm to actually meet the students. So mixers are great. We've had our local ITE chapter has actually linked with us to do a partner mentoring program. So their professionals are actually mentoring with some of our students. These opportunities where you actually get to meet each other, I think are things that really help a lot, because then it's not just a name on a piece of paper or a company name, but you actually get to meet and talk with the students. When Andrea started off, she told us about what she likes to do for fun. That brought a big smile to my face because we're people. And so I think the best way for us to make relationship and link up between the companies that need employees and our students who are going to be great for your companies is to actually start meeting each other. So that would be what I would say, in addition to sort of the formalized things like going through, all of our schools have career offices, right? And all those kind of things. But beyond that, I would say, try to do some of those informal linkages and make relationships.
And before we go on to the next question, it looks like James, you had your hand up. Did you want to answer that question?
Yes, and I'd like to piggyback off of Dr. Lewis. One of the most important things, students are claiming their identities. So when they have their own student groups, you have your NSBE, you have your SHIP, you have your SWE. It's important. They're always looking for people to come in and talk about what's going on in the industry, talk about what they could expect. And even on club level, obviously there's a portal going through the career development office or the necessary path, but it's really important that you investigate the opportunities available to interact with the clubs. Since we're seeking talent for the Midwest, a lot of the times I reach out to see if they have a Midwest club, a Michigan club, a Chicago club, things like that. And that will definitely reap some stellar results for you.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. The next question is from Sharon Okoy. What steps do you recommend for transportation agencies and firms that are not geographically located in your HBCUs to better engage with these colleges and universities, particularly in the Northeast?
In the absence of anyone jumping out there, I'm going to say that one thing that COVID has done is it has made everyone comfortable with Zoom and Teams. So I would say if you're in the Northeast and you don't have any HBCUs close to us, all of our information is in the chat. And so reach out to us and, we can set up Zoom meetings with our students. We can have you be a speaker to a class through Zoom. I mean, we're all doing things online now. So I think that would be the one way, it's just throughout the year. The second thing is when COMTO is up, this summer may have a real in-person meeting, come, and so, we have students at COMTO who come to COMTO as well. So that would be an opportunity for you to, again, kind of meet some folks in person. But I would say first off the bat is use this web tool that we've all gotten really used to right now.
Right. I think what I'd like to add to Dr. Lewis's comments and also kind of amplify what James said earlier is for DOTs, I think it is really important, and folks that don't know Michigan, we don't have HBCUs close by us either. And so, you know, it is critically important that you engage all of those relationship building tools that you would use otherwise. So certainly career offices, associations, even identifying the schools, the target schools that you're interested in, and connecting with their student activities offices so that you can get connected with their student governments and their club system and professional networks that are already being built, as well as fraternities and sorority networks. So all of those networks are critically important. That said, what I would also say, if you want to realize the real return on any investment that you make, even in that engagement space, as a DOT, be prepared to eliminate barriers. So for instance, if you're going to bring someone to North Dakota from North Carolina, you've got to figure out a way to get them there, support them when they are in that space, give them a mentor. Many times what keeps us from having a full fulfillment of a great experience, and thus us losing out on great talent in the transportation industry with this type of program is, again, we've got a leaky pipeline. So we bring people to places, but we haven't helped them figure out, well, what is the roof over my head and how do I pay for it? How and where do I eat? How am I going to get back and forth from, even if you've set up housing for me, to the job site, the work site, et cetera? And so really think about an approach that holistically eliminates barriers. And then you really put a multiplier on your ability to really bring folks into your DOT and into the industry writ large.
Thank you. So I'll move on to our next question. This is from Ramanujam. Have HBCUs looked at creating and or supporting a program where minority students are paired with firms willing to financially support their studies? And then he puts in parentheses, the administrative effort is something private sector firms are typically not equipped to handle.
I'll say anytime someone's interested in giving our students money, we want to know who you are, because that's just not the way that relationship usually starts out. So if you're coming to the table saying we will pay your students to work in our organization or for an internship, you're going to have a very warm conversation and you'll have a stack of resumes within about 24 hours. So that is certainly a great approach to working with students. They are very much interested. And of course, research shows that students who work about 25 hours a week are more likely to graduate, as well as persist in their academic programs and really understand the pathway to a career opportunity. So that is a wonderful way. But also, for a company, we all have institutional advancement offices who are very much interested in building out relationships with corporations and to help corporations understand how to develop a holistic partnership with the organization. MOUs are another way, but one of our most powerful partnerships that we have is a partnership agreement that spells out these are the things that the company wants from Benedict, and these are the things that Benedict wants from the company, and then have semi-annual meetings to really go over the partnership agreement to make sure both partners are getting what they want to get out of the relationship. So partnership agreements, connecting with institutional advancement offices, and for the most part, you can just dial a number at a HBCU and say you want to hire a student, you will get resumes. That part happens very quickly.
Yeah. I would also add, I mentioned in my intro that in a past life, I was with the United Negro College Fund, and I was with the Gates Millennium Scholars Program while at UNCF. And another way for many private companies to enter frame is to utilize, if they have a philanthropic arm or a foundation arm, where they can fund scholarships through that part of the work that they do. And that is critical to connecting to their social responsibility and corporate responsibility mission as well. And then it really does serve ultimately as a type of natural pipeline to get your brand as a supporter in front of those students to say, hey, we've been a brand that's been here supporting your education all along. Please start your professional life with us. And it really does create, I think one of our faculty members, it might have been Dr. Mcbride, talked about how sometimes one challenge is transportation may not seem interesting enough for students. One way to up the ante on its profile, and you know, Bill and Melinda Gates' foundation did this magnificently. Suddenly you've got a scholarship from the Gates family, and your natural first tendency is, let me see what's going on at Microsoft when I'm ready to start my career.
Okay, so for our next question, can you speak to how your schools engage students who may be interested in non-traditional transportation careers, including planning, environmental support, marketing, finance, etc., particularly with respect to recruitment fairs for new hires?
Same way for us, primarily with our state DOT office. Our partners at our state DOT and FHWA South Carolina Division office are just champions for making sure students from all disciplines who have an interest in transportation are able to get connected on the state level. And our state DOT partners work with the prime contractors and disadvantaged and small businesses to let them know that they have a relationship with the HBCU community, in particular Benedict. And so they are not just providers of opportunities, but the leaders at our state DOT office and FHWA division office are also connectors to Benedict College and other HBCUs as well. So for those non-traditional majors, like I said earlier, like accounting and marketing and communications, we really have had a lot of success in placing students in the transportation industry in those areas.
Did anyone else want to address that question?
Well, I guess for us here at A&T, we don't necessarily have any specific career fairs for transportation. I saw that as one of the other questions as well. But within the UTC program, each one of the regional centers, for instance, often will pair a transportation career fair with their regional conference, which is supposed to happen every year. We had a little bump, of course, during the beginning of the pandemic. And so students can get exposure to various fields of transportation that way. Here, because we are in a non-traditional area of transportation, being in the College of Business and Economics, our students are aware or made aware of the various opportunities. For instance, I've had business interns who have actually done research in transportation within the Transportation Institute when I was the director there. So depending upon what our projects entail, we often will reach out to that specific department. So psychology, if there's an element of psychology that's incorporated in a project, but we don't have any targeted, I can say we don't have necessarily any targeted events for that type of recruitment. All of our recruitment does happen through our semi-annual career fairs across the university. So that's the first place to get plugged in. But aside from that, talking to like the associate deans in the colleges that you're interested in hiring students from, that's an area where you can also tap into the students as well.
Thank you. So we have another question. How can DOTs assure readiness to receive graduates and intern students who are interested in other aspects of the organization? For instance, if a student is interested in obtaining experience in communications, how do we assure we can provide the student with the opportunity and not lose their interest while trying to get ready?
Okay, so that's one of my favorite types of questions. I always say co-create the workforce that you want. Be a part of creating the experience in the workforce. And if you're not the communications person, most DOTs, I'm not saying most, but most DOTs have communication officers who do that type of work. So whoever does that work in your organization, connect them with that person, because it is a turnoff for students to have an interest in an area and then be made to feel like, oh, that's a secondary interest, or that's a sidebar interest because we are an engineering industry. And that's how some of the that's how, whether they intend to do it or not, that's how it comes off, that everything else in transportation is second rate. However, transportation industry is very interdisciplinary. You know, we've said non-traditional majors in some circles, that term is used, but transportation is multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. And so again, if you pair students with the professionals who do the work that's aligned with an interest, you will have a home run almost every time.
Okay, well, we're quickly running out of time. So I'm going to throw one more question out there before I hand it back over to Charman to do some closing remarks. So that question is from Rebecca McDonald. How are HBCUs positioning themselves to meet these interests of students looking to study engineering, especially at an undergrad level? Dr. Lewis, I think you're on mute.
No, I actually was processing the question. So the question is, and I was processing, I guess, out loud. So the question was, how do schools posture themselves to recruit undergraduate engineering students? Is that actually what the question is?
Let me see. She said I actually cut off part of her question.
Okay.
Rebecca, could you type that in again? Do you mind? One more time. Well, while Rebecca's typing in that.
It looked like the question, it was a very long question. It has about 5 different questions in it. So if she's referring to her previous posting.
Okay. Let me go back to your posting. What is the big buzzword in transportation for this generation students? I'll lead it with that. What is the equivalent in transportation for Gen Z?
Yeah, okay. So if we're talking about cutting edge technologies, I think clearly everything in automation, things that are going to take us to climate action plan, those are the things that I think we need to be talking about. And I think the Gen Zers care, from what I know, they really care about environmental concerns and where we're going with our carbon emissions and all of our potential problems on the energy side. And so I think that emerging the way that we do and prepare for automated vehicles, whether it's the people running them or the people helping everyone to understand how to use smart technology. I think transitioning to whatever our world is going to be like in 2030, 2035, 2050. I mean, I think those are the things that this generation would really be interested in, and things we can use to really attract them, to talk to them about how, in fact, they can use their creative skills. Because the things that I just threw out, there are no answers right now. We're all out there trying to figure it out. And so I think, them, sort of throwing them the fishing line that here, this is here, and this is something you can help figure out, because all the folks ahead of you actually don't have the answers. We're asking the questions. I think that's one way that we can really attract the next generation, just by putting before them the things that are going to be the challenges of their generation.
And just to kind of, I know we're running out of time, but just to kind of mention again, the building that I said that we just dedicated last week, the Research and Innovation building, that was particularly why that building was built, was so that we could better position ourselves here at A&T at least to meet those needs with the autonomous vehicle, having the actual equipment and facilities here on site where students can get hands-on experience with these technologies that are currently, of course, issues that we're trying to make sure that we address before they are fully implemented and that students are learning about in the classrooms. So having the capability to bring them in and touch and feel and work with these types of technologies, I think is imperative to maintaining their interest, because it sounds like that was kind of part of the question, is how do we meet the interest of those students?
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Hopefully that question was answered to your liking. If not, I did put in the chat the email addresses of our panelists. So anyone looking to get in contact with them to begin a relationship with them or to ask questions, please feel free to do so. And now I'll hand it back over to our moderator, Charman.
Thank you so much for that, Gatwiri. Really appreciate that. This has been a wonderful session, and we hope today's discussion has certainly provided you with some additional knowledge and resources to help you build your team of transportation professionals. Let us thank Compto National for hosting this webinar and all of our esteemed panel for taking time to help us understand the history of African Americans have played and shall play in transportation going forward. This has been a remarkable, remarkable webinar, and I think it's very timely. There's been a lot of information that's been shared with us, and I do hope that you all take this very seriously. You know, there's a treasure trove of talent out there at these historically Black colleges and universities. And so let's not wait for our ship to come in when it comes to talent. Let's swim out and meet it halfway. There's a wonderful future that we have in front of us. We just have to make sure that we're taking the necessary steps to make sure that we get this talent, get it in-house. And it's not enough just to get it in. We have to get them into the house. We've got to help them to get developed, and we've got to show them what leadership truly looks like. Most of the time when they're coming into our organizations, these kids are very, very astute. They're looking around and they're seeing where the opportunities are. And if they don't see anybody that looks like them, that are in leadership roles, guess what? They're just passing through. They're not going to stay there. Let's make sure that we take them and we develop them, that we get them the opportunity. As I said earlier, talent is equally distributed. Opportunity is not. And I want to just leave you with those words and let you ponder that just a little bit. But before we close out, I would be remiss if I did not turn it over to our president and CEO, Ms. April Rye, to take us home. April?
I'm not sure if April is still on. Let me check. She did have another meeting that she had to go to, but she said the panel and everything she heard was great. So she's sorry she had to jump off the call early. But I will end the call with some information. We'll go back to James really quickly. He wanted to put in a plug for the summer internship with the Michigan Department of Transportation. There's a QR code here that will lead you to the website to give you more information. So James, did you want to chime in one more time?
Sure. We can't do this alone. It takes partnerships, strategic partnerships. Exposure brings closure. Just like here at Michigan, anyone that's interested in the transportation industry and you know someone or you do attend the HBCU, feel free to apply. Compto Michigan, ACEC Michigan, and Michigan Department of Transportation are here to lead you into a career that will be fulfilling and rewarding, and you meet some great people along the way. So take the time and apply, and thank you everyone for joining our call today.
All right, and so I just wanted to alert you all before we leave to some important Compto information. One, if you like what you've heard here and you're interested in advancing our mission here at Compto, please join or renew your membership today. Also on March 16th, we will have our Celebrating Women Who Move the Nation event. It's currently sold out, but we do have virtual tickets where you can view the ceremony online. And then someone mentioned our National Meeting and Training Conference. We will be having a National Meeting and Training Conference in July of this year. We're finalizing some things, but we will be going live in the next week or so with registration, the location, and hotel information as well. So you can look forward to a live in-person Compto conference. And one thing I failed to put down is that we do have scholarships. We have our national scholarships that are open right now. We're accepting applications until April 15th. And you can find all of this information on our website at comptonational.org. There is the link right there, comptonational.org. Please visit us there to find out information about Celebrating Women, Scholarships in the National Meeting and Training Conference. And someone asked about the recording. This recording will be made available to all attendees. What I will do is I will send an email out to all attendees with the recording, as well as the email addresses, once again, of our panelists. And with that, we'd like to thank you. Hope everyone had a wonderful Black History Month and took in all the great information that's been put out there. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.